Hey everybody, it's Peter Sinkevich. I love startup.com coming back to you for the next conversation I'd like to have with you guys. And it really was triggered initially from one of my speakers on Wednesday at Fuck Up Nights NYC. That was my friend NC Obotetakudo, who was one of the founders or co-founders of Alley and Alley NYC, a co-working space in New York City. Uh, One of his takeaways was use everything you got. Basically, take advantage of every last resource and thing that you have in order to accomplish whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. And that kind of sunk in with me. I think I try to do that naturally anyway, but it really kind of sunk in with me in terms of how I try to execute with my own stuff, and it made me really think about some of my own limitations and how I've learned to leverage my weaknesses for strengths. Specifically, what I'm talking about, and I don't know that many of you know this yet, but or maybe some of you do. Maybe you've heard me talk about it before, but I was as a kid I was diagnosed with ADHD. This was a pretty rough thing for me to deal with growing up because when I was a kid, there was not a lot of information about ADHD or ADD. It was still being learned about and discovered by doctors. There's really only one medication of choice on the market at that time, which was Ritalin, not even time-lapse Ritalin. So there's a lot of issues that came along with that. Trying to understand how to deal with it and what it was and what triggers it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the things that I learned throughout that process was this idea of, how do I turn this negative into a positive, right? And what I ended up discovering was, in some ways, ADD and ADHD was an advantage, and it gave me an edge over other people, even though it was typically considered a disadvantage. And the way that works was um, you with ADHD and ADD, the common thing is, you have a hard time focusing at moments when you need to sit down and focus, right? So you have homework, you have a deadline, you have some piece of work you need to do for your job. You need to get it done by tomorrow at noon, for example. So I have, I would say less than 24 hours to accomplish that task, hypothetically, if that were the example. And for me to necessarily find a period of focus in the next 24 hours to accomplish that isn't guaranteed. I can certainly try as much as I want, but at the end of the day, if I can't sit down long enough or wrangle my thoughts clearly enough in order to accomplish the task, it puts me in a pretty shitty position, right? So I later on learned how to kind of mitigate that without all of the typical medications that most people use. Like, I don't take Ritalin now. I don't take Adderall. I don't take anything, literally. I don't take any medications to do it. What works for me is, diet, exercise, meditation. So yoga, physical workouts and exercise, meditation in the mornings, the removal of certain things in my diet, the addition of a lot of other specific things in my diet, like the removal of chocolate, sugars, caffeines as much as possible, or in moderate amounts, in the addition of like fatty acids like omega 3, 6, and 9s and stuff like that. Anyway, the thing that I realized in that process, though, was I can focus harder than anybody else I knew when I was focused. So, you would think of the average person, when they're at a serious task, they can sit down and they can give something 100% of their focus, and they can work on that task and they can get it done. I would have a hard time even just getting halfway there sometimes. But when I was really dialed in and really focused on something, it was like 150%. Like, you couldn't, I had blinders on. You couldn't, like, there wasn't anything you could knock me out of to get me out of the focus I had on whatever it is that I was doing. And that tended to circle around things that I loved, right? So when I was a kid, it was art, architecture, certain parts of science was really interesting to me. I just loved learning the way things worked. So running down that rabbit hole of why does this work this way and why does that way and why was really good for me. But that was my advantage. That was learning how to use my disadvantage to my advantage. So now that I've learned things like, the exercise and the diet to mitigate a lot of the issues of that, and it allows me to focus better at the moments when I need to, almost on demand, like a normal person should. When I do focus, it's like laser and it's on. So I've learned to leverage that to my advantage competitively. And so I've had a fair amount of success in doing that throughout my career. So the takeaway through my own example for you guys is, we talk about hiring the weakness. You've heard me say that before. You've heard me say, in order to do that, you need to be very self-reflective and introspective to understand what you're really good at and what you're really not good at. And that takes a very honest look at yourself in order to do that. And when you discover the disadvantages, you want to see if there's anything there that you can leverage to your own advantage. That maybe you haven't given it the right attention or the respect that it deserves. Another way, that I work against my ADHD is I'm hyper aware of my level of organization with things. Because disorganization just, a person's mind on ADD or with ADD or ADHD is like a super messy bedroom, right? That's what my mind looks like when I have millions of thoughts going through. This crap is everywhere, right? So the only way to, kind of cut through all that is to remain super organized. So now my house, my room, everything is super organized, not anally, but enough that there's patterns and there's places to find things, and it's very logical in that way. And I've done that with like my tasks too. There's a really cool what is the name of it? So there's an author, David Allen, back in the 80s and 90s, who wrote a book called Getting Things Done. And I talk about this all the time for people who, express their issues or concerns with their level of organization, or they wish they could get more time back in their day. This is how I did it for myself, and I literally doubled my productivity through David Allen's work. And so it's a very, very good book, and basically it teaches you how to, organize your thoughts and be clear-minded about things. And it has the boil down of that is there's a couple parts of that process, right? The first thing is to recognize your brain is not designed to store things. It's designed to process, not like store. So the idea of trying to remember all the things you need to do in a day is a challenge, but it's not really how your brain is best designed to work. So you should probably maybe design a process around that allows you to free your mind of remembering those things, and then you can focus on just executing, right? So he says, first things first, spend as much time as you need, several hours a day, even a couple days. Took me like an entire weekend, 2 days, to sit down and dump out everything that was on my mind, in the back of my mind I was trying to remember, because there's stuff that you constantly think about or you have on your mind, but you don't even consciously think about it anymore. They're just there. And so it takes a while of genuine focus and thought in order for you to bring it to the surface. And so you get it all down on a piece of paper. And then once it's all down on the piece of paper, you go through a few passes on it. The first pass is if there's anything on that list that can be done in 2 minutes or less, do it right now. Do it right now, scratch it off the list, and it's done. So you eliminated a bunch of stuff that way. Then the second pass is what on this list can be delegated to somebody else. And if it can be delegated, boom, you hand it off, you tell them this is your responsibility now, and then you scratch it off your list. And then what you have left are your actual tasks, and then you organize those with projects and context. And so I utilize this thing every single day. And what it allows me to do is during the course of my day, I brain dump everything that I have into this process, and I go to bed sleeping really soundly because I don't have any of those residual thoughts, and I wake up fresh and clean in my mind. I do my meditation for 10 minutes, and then I'm on to looking at that list, and that tells me, okay, here's all the things I need to do, and I can pick all the stuff I want to try to accomplish that day, and I put them on a priority list, A, B, and C. And that A, B, C list is get everything on A first before you can do B, get everything done on B before you can do C. And so that leaves no organization for me in the day in terms of my tasks. I'm really just left to executing what I need to do. And that alleviated so much overhead from my day that I almost nearly doubled my productivity every single day as a result. So that was another way of, taking advantage of my shortcomings or my self-perceived shortcomings, and built a thing around me that allowed me to, leverage it and get ahead. So that's a couple of things I wanted to leave with you today. I hope you find some value in that. Hope you're having a great weekend. You're hitting the reset button a little bit. It's important to take some time for yourself and get yourself set for another kick-ass week. So thanks again for watching. Please subscribe. Please share this with your friends. I do this every single day. Like us, add comments, tell me what you liked, what you didn't like, if you hate me, or this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. I need that feedback so I can do better videos in the future. And the support is greatly appreciated. So thank you very much for watching. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Peace. Hustle hard.